Welcome, everyone. This is the Finance Committee. It is September 10th, 2024. It is 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America and to the republic
for
which
which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. The meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 orders suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A, Section 20. And on March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed a supplemental 2023 budget bill allowing for remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. Well, welcome everyone. Let me do a roll call of who's here. So we have Christopher Thrasher, Finance Committee members Christopher Thrasher, Al Lees, Cindy Brown, Duncan Laud, Hugh Morton, Michelle Orlando, Zach LeBrew, and myself, Karen Rouse. It looks like absent at this moment is Gary Carrero. So welcome everyone.
Hi.
Hi, it's been a long time.
It has.
Feels good, doesn't it?
It actually does.
You don't realize sometimes how often we were meeting and it became such a normal Tuesday night thing. So to have a couple of months off has been quite refreshing.
Right. We were so cozy for so long, for all those months. And now it's like, oh, right. I remember we used to spend a lot of time together.
Well, let's see. We did have the first thing on our agenda tonight was our town moderator is supposed to be joining us, and I do not see him at the moment. So let's skip over the first item on the agenda and let's keep on going, and hopefully he'll come on soon. Since it's September, we're a little early in the budget process, and the select board at last night's meeting, the town administrator put together their budget schedule. And so we can pass that along and talk about it more next month. But what I had on the agenda tonight was to talk about liaison assignments. So I know we all took assignments last year, and then we'd all reallocated all of them, and then Duncan Law joined the committee, and we didn't at that time bother to switch them around. So right now Duncan doesn't have any department budgets, and I didn't send out that schedule in advance. So I apologize. It's sitting in the Google Drive, but I didn't send it out. So I suppose we can skip over that, and next month we can really give Duncan a couple of departments, so we can just spread out and balance ourselves again. So not one person's super heavy and not one person super light on their schedule, if we can help accommodate that. So maybe between now and next month we can all look at the schedules and see if there's anything anybody's willing to relinquish, or Duncan, if there's anything in particular you're interested in, we can kind of work that way. So I have no personal objection to any of my departments or anything. So moving right along, why don't we get the minutes approved so we can take that out of the way. We had 2 minutes. And maybe someone can help refresh me of the dates that we have to approve tonight.
June 18th and July 9th.
Thank you. So June
So
18th.
moved. Does that not take up enough time? So
That's
moved.
we're gonna slow this down, people.
Right.
So any discussions on those minutes?
Al has his hand raised.
Well,
go ahead.
I do, but it's not specifically the minutes. I kind of jumped the gun. So let's keep going with this. And
Okay,
then
sure thing. So if no other discussion on the minutes, we can go ahead and I'll take a roll call on those. Christopher?
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
Thank you. Al?
Al Lees, aye.
Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Duncan?
You're on mute, Duncan.
All right,
There we go.
Duncan Law, aye.
Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Michelle,
Michelle Orlando, I.
Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you. Just checking, I don't see our town moderator quite yet, so maybe we can move ahead to item 4, which is committee or liaison updates. Does anybody have, oh, go ahead, Al, you wanted to
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it was just very brief. I received
Take
an
your
email.
time.
I received
Take
an
your
email.
time.
I'm sorry. Yeah, take it. Well, we do have a debate at 9 o'clock, I guess. So,
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr.
yeah,
Weems.
I know. I'll be in bed by 8. But anyway, that's here and there. I received an email, and I assume everybody else did, regarding Duncan. It's not a department liaison, but Maury May sent and asked a request to send for Duncan or someone to send email and phone number for contact. That's all I wanted to
Yep, thank you. Thanks, we got it. We took
Okay.
care of it.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone have any committees? So the last time we met was in July, right? So I know the summer is usually on the slow side for committee meetings. I had one committee that I can talk about in a second, but does anyone have did any
So-
committees meet?
So I'm going to defer to Christopher, although I guess technically I think I'm still confused as to whether I'm the FinCom representative to the Long-Term Building Committee or the at-large members. So we still have to square that away.
Yeah.
But Christopher is the chair of that committee, so I'm going to defer to him to provide an update on that committee. The audit committee has not met since we last met, and that's really, I believe, my only other liaison item. So that's not even a liaison, that's a committee request. So I'm going to let Christopher talk about Long-Term Building Committee.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. So very quickly, there was a meeting last week. It should be noted here that the select board is kind of taking things off, taking it out of the long-term building committee hands right now as far as the next steps are concerned. The select board has put forth an RFP to possibly or to look for a
Oh, he muted himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christopher, you're on mute now.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
So I'm not sure where I got cut off, but the select board basically taken this out of the long-term building committee's hands for the moment. There was a request for proposal that was sent by Mr. Hardnett. I believe it went out Thursday, asking for the project manager consulting on the potential of changing the building to municipal use. The meeting that we had on Wednesday was to just go over that RFP, but also to approve an expenditure that is going to be working with SERPED to actually do a full scan of the building as far as the floor plan and just to get some good schematics. This was an offer apparently that had been given a few years ago and never taken up on, or the previous iterations of the committee had not taken the offer up. So that was requested. It was requested that the select board approve the funding out of the town warrant article for that scan. That received approval last night. So, and I just got an email earlier today from Michael Burris, Michael Burris and Jim Hardnett going back and forth mentioning that this scan with SERPED is now in the works. So that's about the extent of the long-term building committee right now. I do not know when the next meeting, because of the next charge, I guess, of the long-term building committee at this point. While that request for proposals is out, I believe October is an October deadline for interested parties to reach out on that. And that's probably going to be the sum total of the updates until those proposals come back.
Great. Thank you, Christopher. Go ahead, Ally. You've got your hand up.
I do, and I want to make a point very, very clearly. The question that I have has nothing to do with at all with the work of the committee or whatever. But we all know this is a contentious issue, and everybody has an opinion, and it goes in 40 directions. And we have approved at least two, I believe, separate consultant fee amounts, maybe three, but let's just stick with two. My question is, are we any closer to a resolution to this, to bring it to the townspeople, or is this just another step? And I'm not disparaging anybody. It's a pure finance question.
If I may, Madam Chair, it's a good question. It's a question that needs to be asked. It's a question I continue to ask. I will tell you that the difference between this particular RFP and this particular study proposal, in my eyes, is that it is going to be, first of all, utilizing what has been previously done, but more importantly, it is actually going to take into account a study or a evaluation of additional town buildings. So it's going to look at the annex. It's going to look at the town hall. Something that I've been pushing for more than a year now is the fact that in order to make any kind of decision on what's next, there has to be some real concrete numbers. There's got to be an apples to apples comparison to be able to have a cost benefit analysis. And I am happy to report that at long last, it seems like the select board has taken action to at least get the data, the full picture of the data that's going to be required to make a decision with this study. It is also very clear in the RFP, and I appreciate Mr. Harder's work on this. It's very clear that this is not going to be a rehashing of what has previously done. The studies that have already been done are part of the body of work that whoever responds to this is actually going to be analyzing. So it's progress. It's still a crawling pace, no question, but it is, to me, this is a little progress compared to where we were a little while ago. So
Okay, well, thank you.
Go ahead, Cindy.
So one of the other things that I think that people have to absolutely understand, that no matter, as Al said, this people have many opinions about this. Regardless of your opinion, this is going to cost a significant amount of money, no matter what happens. If we demolish the school, it's several $1 million, and all you end up with is a cleared lot. If we decide to mothball the school, which I think is probably the least likely option, it's going to cost a significant amount of money every year to keep it that way for insurance and whatnot. If we decide to move forward and convert the building into some type of multi-use municipal building, that of course is going to cost some money. In order to sell the building or sell the parcel of land, which is also the least likely option that most people want to take, given the value of the fields that are there. It's a public water supply. The town would no longer have access to such a large parcel of land. If it were to be sold, the amount of money that someone would be willing to pay for it, unless they're willing to use the building, which is not currently zoned for commercial, but if they wanted to use the building for some other purpose other than a school, it would also cost them a significant amount of money. And it would be very, the amount of money that they would be willing to pay the town if they had to demolish the building would also be very small. The amount of money we would ever receive for that land, given the fact that it has that building on it, is probably pretty low. So any direction you turn, either you get a little bit of money for all of that land, given you've got this big albatross on it, or you demolish the building ourselves and perhaps down the road, 10, 20 years down the road, we build something else on it, that's going to cost a significant amount of money. We'd have to borrow money to do that. So any direction you go in this, I think this committee has to be prepared. It's going to cost something. It's going to cost a significant amount of money, no matter what direction we go. So anyway, that's really, I just want to make that pretty clear.
Great, thank you. Christopher, in terms of, and I don't know if you know this, but in terms of the RFP, you said it's going to be back in sometime in October. Is there any sort of timeline of, assuming we get responses that, of the request for proposals, is there any sort of timeline of how long it might take someone to actually put together a plan of this nature? Is it 3 months, 6 months? Is it a year? I guess I'm just trying to gauge, is this something conceivable that it would be for next annual town meeting, or is that too aggressive of a timetable? Do you have any idea?
So I can tell you, I'm looking up right now the actual proposal. I believe that it was, I believe it was a response or a delivery date by, I want to say June, so not in time for the next town meeting. But I am going through this right now here, just to see when the scope of work delivery was supposed to be here. Yes, okay, so project scheduled term of service shall commence immediately, and completion currently estimated to be on or before June 30th, 2025. There was some discussion as to whether, not in the committee, but there was some discussion about whether to kind of to shorten that up. And the feedback that was given was that if it's going to be with the length and breadth of this study, that it's going to have to be a June delivery.
Okay, so we wouldn't be likely looking at an article at annual town meeting for this, since we wouldn't have the results. So
no, I think that it's certainly possible that a special election maybe could happen, and I think there's been some thoughts towards that, but that's extremely preliminary at this point, of course. So
great. And has the committee or the select board or the comment, I see Evan joined us, and maybe anybody can answer this, but have been the discussions of what to do with the building until a decision is made? Because I know we've talked about not using it and insurance and boarding it up and having issues with plumbing, and do we have a short-term plan, or,
So there have been extensive conversations, discussions, and I guess actions taken between the town and the school committee. The school committee, we did decide to move out certain student-facing offices from that building into the remaining buildings in order to basically, we did not go with the original plan of moving everyone out of the high school administrative offices right now. That was, to some extent, to make it easier on the town and easier on Jim as he continues to try and jump through a bunch of hoops here. There is still a question of insurance costs. It is my understanding that there was a disconnect between what the insurance, what the insurer thought the building was being used for and what it is being used for. And we're going on a few months now without a clear answer on exactly what kind of additional insurance costs the town is looking at right now, based on the current occupancy rate as well as any future change in the occupancy rate. So that's still still a question right now. I know that it has been brought up in select board meetings a couple times as far as what's going to happen come winter. I know that there's at least one recreational league, youth recreation league, that is still going to be utilizing the facility, and of course elections will be held at that being a polling place. So the full answer is that discussions have continued to be ongoing, but there's no don't have a lot of resolutions as to even the short term right now, for sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, that's ongoing, right? Any other questions on this so far? Go ahead, Michelle.
I don't have a question on that. I mean, I have many questions on that, but there are no answers here. So, but I did have a follow-up from previous meetings regarding the electricity and the credits. Was there a follow-up there? Did they get the credits? Did the bill get paid? Was that all settled?
To the best of my knowledge, which was, I guess, updated as of last week, that has not been resolved yet. The issue is squarely on Eversource. This is an issue with accounting and basically there's a question of why credits aren't showing up based on the generation that's occurring in this one particular solar farm. This continues to be an issue, but again, this is Eversource's issue. There are bills that are piling up, but at the same time, the school committee certainly hasn't received any shutoff notices, and Eversource is aware that the ball is in their court, and
Okay.
until they get their house in order, there's not much we can do, unfortunately. But I do know that it is now a somewhat significant deficit based on the.
I imagine it would be. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just on the topic of the long-term building committee, and I think following up for other agenda items that we have, topics for next meetings and whatnot. Last year, we the finance committee and the select board and some members of the school committee, it wasn't a full school committee that joined the calls. We had a nice budget kickoff meeting to really discuss the fiscal budget as a whole and where are we seeing and what are we going to do. And we had our first meeting was in October, and then we had 2 in January. And although October may seem early, it's really not. So when you're thinking about, it's not just the fiscal budget in front of you, it's 5-year planning and all of that. So it's not that early to be thinking about potentially looking to schedule another meeting, because by the time we get all the parties to schedule, it'll probably be November anyway. But the long-term building committee brings up the topic that I'm bringing up is, as Cindy pointed out, whatever gets done potentially with this building is going to cost lots of money. So again, I want to bring forth, I think the town officials need to prioritize where we're going to spend the money. So not very long ago, we had at our annual town meeting, there was a pretty sizable request for water and sewer. And we all know that the debt exclusion was not passed. But there are still conversations and there are members that are still pursuing avenues for that. And it was discussed that there's some significant environmental issues and the state may force us to do, the town to do things, etc. And so I'd like to understand, have we abandoned that project? And now, because we have 2 projects that are in the 30+ million range, right? So are we not going to pursue a water and sewer and now look to ask the residents to fund the school? And then that would then preclude, I think, any other big project to ever happen. So if 1 passes, I can never see 2 passing, right? So what's the town's priority? Is it this building? Is it other infrastructure? What is the priority? And I think that's a conversation to have with the select board. And that's part of long-term planning and that's part of capital planning. Go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, we have to wait to hear what the committee says. My view is very simple. Get rid of it. It's a white elephant. The idea is creating more chaos by consolidating other office buildings and so forth into something to that, but we will see what the committee says and then we can react to it. It's easier, in my view, to have a small expense now, which clears the decks. Maybe a significant expense, but still not a long-term expense. But that's how the decision be made now. Our discussion comes after their recommendations and we have something to react to.
Mhm.
As far as the sewer is concerned, people have their own reactions. I thought it was pretty clear the town wasn't going to go for that at that point. Maybe there'll be a change of heart, but it still requires exclusion vote, which is not an easy thing to do. As I recall, it lost by about 2-1, so it
Mhm.
wasn't close.
Mhm. No, I appreciate all that. I'm not trying to rehash the conversation of being for or not in favor or all of the reasons, but you know, there are a lot of other elements that were expressed to us through the committee, that there's many other reasons to potentially pursue this. And one of them was the state may come down and force something upon the residents. So again, I'm just, thinking as the residents, from the resident standpoint. So if we pursue a significant debt exclusion or potential on the school, then might we all have to then pay some more funds for something else that no one wants to do? But we only have so much in our back pockets. So I just want us to all be cognizant of where we're really at and what we'd be asking our town residents to pay for. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I won't rehash the thoughts on the long-term builder or on the school building, but I would like to say I don't know if this is, I don't know where, if anywhere, this is the purview of the Finance Committee, but I will say that based on the fact that town voted, as Mr. Morton mentioned, they voted very clearly against the project, the sewer project as it was presented. Subsequently, the select board has voted to pursue eminent domain takings for pumping stations. Now, whether or not that is using ARPA funds or any other, segregated town funds, I have a serious issue with that. I'm wondering, I don't know if, like I said, if this is even the purview of the Finance Committee, but it does seriously concern me that the town is expending these funds to do these eminent domain takings without a project that's been approved by the voters. So that's just my two thoughts on that.
Yeah, let me, and thank you. And the Finance Committee is here to help advise and help make sure the residents understand what's going on. But to answer your point on the select board actions, the select board has the authority to expend the ARPA funds without going to town meeting or without requesting the advice of the Finance Committee. So they have chosen to do what they've done and they have authority to do so. So, I have my own opinions on that, but I don't need to share them at the moment. But they did have authority to do that. So that is the select board's purview, and it's not part of the Finance Committee to respond to that necessarily. But Duncan, did you have your hand up? And then Al has his hand up.
Yeah, Duncan had his hand up.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, reflecting on what Cindy said and Karen, what you said. I mean, we have no money. I mean, this seems like a fool's errand, unless we're going to tear the building down at the minimum amount. I mean, I don't know where we're going with this. I'm a new kid on the block. I'm new to the Finance Committee, but I honestly don't understand. We don't have any money.
It's a very valid point. Go ahead, Al.
I have been, over the last 3 months, accosted at a variety of places in a good way, asked from people who have asked why the Finance Committee does not engage more with overall, looking overall at the financial impact in a three-dimensional way. Those are my words, as opposed to looking at a very specific thing and saying, yes, no, or whatever. And I think what the people were really trying to say is, what is the impact, the long term, not just the cost of, and we use sewer and water as an example. I'm not beating up on sewer and water in this particular conversation. I've got plenty of other ways of doing that. But it's what is the three-dimensional cost to the town? What does it mean for a Briggs Road fire station, for example? What does it mean for a build out of the affordable housing or housing on that corridor and the schools? And are we missing an opportunity? Because my understanding, and I believe that I'm correct, but I could certainly be wrong, is that if we vote for the sewer and water, the people that own the property along the corridor that we're talking about would pay the frontage fee, whatever that might be, but then they can build out afterwards. And the fact of the matter is that number would be significantly less. And what I've heard is, oh, don't worry, the select board can create fees and whatever. Well, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you, and we'll leave it at that. So what I'm getting at is that maybe what we should consider doing as a subcommittee or as a group, or maybe not at all. I mean, it's at the at the will, if you will, of this finance committee to help these different committees do a deep dive and be able to present to the taxpayer the true economic cost and revenue, if you will, of a particular project. And we use sewer and water, but clearly these this consultant that we're talking about having, Christopher and Cindy, unless I'm wrong, for the building, is trying to look at a similar type of situation with that, and which I think is positive, because if we keep the building, and then I'll end it, we still have other buildings, we still have other properties, we still have other things. So what is the overall impact to the taxpayer of the town? So I'll leave it at that, but it's just some food for thought on different issues relating to the town, not just the shiny new object that is in front of us at any given point in time.
Yeah, thank you. And absolutely, I think it's all of the above, Al. So in my opinion, where does the finance committee stand? So certainly our responsibility is, when there's something in front of us, to advise at town meeting or make a recommendation. But the finance committee is also, quote, the financial watchdogs, right? So we're supposed to be looking out for things, and that's part of why the finance committee has liaisons on all the committees. So this way we're kept abreast of something that's going on, and then we can provide feedback or kind of have some more conversations on that. But and that's why I was throwing out that we should my suggestion is that we should try to schedule the next joint meeting with the select board, because this is all long-term capital planning. This is all planning. This is all things that we should be involved in those discussions and participating in. So I think we should be. Go ahead, Hugh.
I just want to pick up on, Krista talked about some exercise of eminent domain. Could you tell me more about that? Sometimes eminent domain is simply a practical way of dealing with possible title issues. It really doesn't mean anything. But I wasn't aware of anything that had been acquired by eminent domain, so could you fill me in, please?
Christopher, you can fill it in.
Yes, so I believe there were two properties that there was this is a couple of select board meetings ago. There were two properties where the select board moved to, or voted to move ahead with with takings of these properties, these two properties where pump stations were going to be constructed as part of the previous sewer proposal. And the select board voted, it was not a unanimous vote, but the select board voted to begin the process of eminent domain taking. So I don't believe it's happened yet, but it's in the works. And I think, as I recall, I think it was ARPA funds that they were using for that.
Mhm.
So
Now, it seems to
Me,
me to be a questionable expenditure if the project at the moment is dead. But you're right, it's within their authority.
Right, and right, and so I believe that it's correct. They are using some ARPA funds, which do expire at the end of the year, so they need to be used by the end of the year. So that was some of the justification to use up those funds.
Why don't they just have a party? Would be a better use of the funds than buying land for something that was not gonna happen. Ridiculous.
I completely agree. So,
Well, that
I
doesn't mean
wasn't,
that it's never going to happen. Okay, so I mean, I think that's the feeling, is that because they voted it down once. I mean, how many times did they vote the marijuana issue? I mean, because it was voted down, perhaps in a different format or in a different reiteration of betterments. I mean, I think that there was a very large lack of information or information that the homeowner could understand. So I don't think that this is a dead issue by any stretch. Maybe it
Well,
doesn't come back
there's
next year. Maybe it
There's
doesn't
really
come
like
back
vote
next
against the
year.
project. I'll leave it at that.
But maybe 3 years from now it will, maybe 5 years from now it will, maybe the state will mandate some of this. So I think that this issue with the pump stations, and it is my understanding from watching the board meeting, these were semi-friendly takings. These were not contentious eminent domain takings. That one of them is a parcel of land in front of the Meatworks building, and they seem to be fine. I didn't understand the issue between, they said that both owners were fine with the takings, but yet they were going to be eminent domain. So I didn't really understand how that works, why they couldn't just sell them that parcel, but it had to be eminent domain, I guess. To
Cindy,
break it
I
up.
can answer that to some extent. Taking cuts off any title issues. So a friendly
Right.
sale by eminent
Okay.
domain is just a technique rather than anything. I'm just dealing with the money, that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the money was there, and it was kind of already allocated toward that project, and it needs to be done prior to the end of this calendar year. In my opinion, it doesn't, because it was voted down once, it doesn't mean that it's dead forever. And you will see this project come back again. There is no doubt in my mind. It will be addressed again in the future.
yeah, and again, I don't want this to turn into a water sewer because this
Right.
is not on our agenda, but we are talking about kind of what led into this. But, my concern is that federal dollars, although they expire at the end of the year and have to be used, there are plenty other places that it can be used for current needs
Of course.
today, right
Of
now,
course.
rather than spend funds on a maybe 3 years from now, right? So that's sunken money. So there's money that can be used today to deal with today's needs, and
Well,
it could have been
Bristol
unallocated.
County is rather particular as to how some of those opera monies were going to be used. The state money, the unallocated state money, was not as much of a pickle as to what you spent it on. So if you got it approved from Bristol County and it had already been approved, it's very difficult to get other types of projects approved. We've already done an ambulance. We went through a lot of the costs that were allowable under the Bristol County plan, but I'm not saying there weren't other things that could have been done. Time was an issue. The project had already been approved for that particular expense, and it is what it is.
Mhm. Thank you. Anything else on that? No. Okay, great. So I'm looking at my email to see if Steve Forr's I sent him an email. I do not see him, so he must have forgot about tonight's meeting. But but I think I can summarize a little bit in a nutshell. So Christopher, this is in no way personal at all to you. It's not personal at all, but as we all know, Christopher is an elected school committee member and is presently on the finance committee. And I know Christopher did a lot of research with the state, and the state determined that they don't have anything in particular where it violates a conflict of interest from the state standpoint, but they did say if it's in town in some cases it could be in town bylaws that preclude finance committee members from being elected officials on any other elected officials. And so the town of Westport does not have that in the bylaw. And the town moderator had done some research with some other towns and found some language that's used in several other towns that he's worked with, that if we so chose to add that language to the town bylaw, and that would have to go through annual town meeting, that could preclude, that could address the conflict of interest that we're talking about here. So that's what he was going to come on to talk about. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did do extensive research to make sure that this would not be considered legally a conflict of interest. I think it's really important to mention here, none of these are paid positions. So I'm certainly not getting rich off my work on the school committee or the finance committee. It's, in fact, in some ways exactly the opposite. But I think that, to be perfectly frank, the idea that it could be perceived as a conflict of interest, I think, is indicative of an unfortunate state of our town discussions right now, because I think that there has been somewhat of an adversarial footing that either committee has been on for a while, and I don't think that's certainly not any particular person or committee's fault. I think it just, there's been obvious tension for many years in this town between the town side and the school side, and I guess my feeling very strongly is that tension need not be there. And if there is absolutely anything that I can do to try to alleviate that tension, including concurrently serving on both committees, I intend to do that. It's my intention to bring an understanding of the school budget to the finance committee. And I think that there are certain things that came up last year during finance committee and school committee, a couple of joint meetings actually, where I heard things from the school side that didn't make sense to me. Things like when circuit breakers hit, when the adjustments are made, why some months look ridiculous compared to others, and a lot of it just comes down to the fact that sometimes there's no rhyme or reason as to knowing when state reimbursements are going to come. And now that I am able to do deep dives into the school budget, I have a better understanding of why things are the way they are, and also why it's sometimes very hard to explain on the school side. And that's a perfect example of something that I want to be able to help this committee understand going forward. So I do intend to continue serving on both committees, and again, my main point of view here is that I want to be a if you want to call it a change agent or whatever, but I just want to try as best I can, as best as one person can, to remove this adversarial footing, because I mean, it is the town and the school are not separate entities. It is the town of Westport, and in both of these committee roles, my ultimate I ultimately answer to the townspeople and the taxpayers of Westport. So that's my opinion on the matter. I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak on it.
Great, thanks, Christopher. Go ahead, Hugh.
I accept at face value, there's no prohibition against serving on both committees. However, it's a classic conflict of interest in a general sense. There's one pot of money that is available to the town. It's allocated among the schools and the town. It's perfectly obvious that someone's a member of the school committee, I don't say that with any criticism, has an allegiance first to the school committee. The membership of the finance committee is to the town as a whole, the allegiance, rather than individual. I accept that that it is permissible for someone to serve on both committees, but I would think that the finance committee member would then recuse himself from anything pertaining to the school committee because of the obvious other potential of being an advocate for one of the constituents rather than the town as a whole. It's not necessarily a precedent that anybody's gone by, but I remember our longstanding committee member, Bob McCarthy, recused himself from dealing with the police department. Not that he had any connection, but he had an association in the past and family members who were involved with it. No financial interest either way. We thought it not appropriate to deal with something where his allegiance could be questioned. I think that's the right answer, but I understand it is not mandatory.
Thank you, Hugh. Cindy, go ahead.
I agree a lot with what you said. I mean, I think that there is an issue where it comes down to, recusing yourself from the largest budget that we have in town, being the most significant factor in town. And really, you should recuse yourself from voting on that particular budget. I can certainly appreciate your desire to want to be that change agent, as you described, as well as trying to relay helpful information both ways. I mean, you say how there might be information from the school side that was a little bit perhaps confusing or unfamiliar to the finance committee. Well, I think vice versa as well. I mean, I think that there are issues that the finance committee has to deal with that perhaps the school committee cannot appreciate as a body whole, which I think in the last 2 years, I think they've come a long way in understanding that it is a finite pot of money that we're dealing with, that any dollar that is allocated more to one budget is taken away from the other. It's not, oh, well, we'll just tax more. It's a finite pot of money. And that's square one that everyone has to start with. There's only so many dollars. So that being said, I mean, I think everything you described, Christopher, is absolutely true, but that could also work with the liaison. So any liaison from the finance committee that is presented to the school committee as being the liaison for that committee should have the same access that, we all deal in public meetings. These are all public meetings. You've been, attending all of the finance committee meetings. We do not discuss anything that the public doesn't hear. This meeting is being recorded. The general public will hear everything that we have discussed. We don't have offline meetings. We don't have executive session, none of those things. So I think it's a little bit of people opening their ears and understanding a little bit on either side. I don't think it requires a membership of either one to be able to do that. I mean, I think that whoever is the liaison to the schools, I think we've had a breakdown in communication in that regard in the last few years. I think that part should change. And vice versa, that someone from the school committee that wants to understand how the finance committee works is certainly welcome to attend any one of the meetings that we have. So I don't think it necessarily requires being a member of both to be able to get to that change that you are fostering, which I think is fabulous. I think it's very much needed, but I don't think it requires that you be a member of each part, because we're all part of public bodies that should have all of our meetings in public. Your budget sessions in schools are certainly public, and as well as ours are. So there shouldn't be too much mystery between the two.
Thanks, Cindy. And I just want to be clear too. I agree with what you said, Cindy, and Hugh as well. So this isn't about the school committee. This isn't about that. This is about the finance committee should be independent in nature and should be perceived to be independent in nature. So even if technically the state doesn't preclude it, there's a perception of lack of independence. And when there's a perception of lack of independence, that becomes a challenge. So again, it's not the school committee. The way this stands as well, anybody could be an elected library trustee, and it's the same issue. A finance committee member could be elected to the select board under our scenario right now. And those are things that really lack independence, but the bylaws don't preclude it. So it could happen. And so I think what this brought up was we should really look at our bylaws as other towns have done and make sure that the finance committee remains independent and isn't able to be an elected official on any other body, not just the school committee. This is not about the school committee. This is about anybody. So that's what this is about. Michelle, did you want to go ahead, because Christopher's up, but you haven't spoken yet.
Yes, thank you. I think everything that everybody said is all true, right? Can all be true at the same time. And I appreciate Christopher's sentiments, because I had the same when I was finished with my term on school committee. I had sent an email to the town moderator to request to be a member of the FinCom. There was a member that had left, and he wouldn't allow it at that time because he thought I was too soon off of the school committee. So I wasn't even on the school committee. So it was about a year before he appointed me to the finance committee for that reason. And I do appreciate it. What you just said, Karen, I think is so true. Perception becomes reality sometimes. People think you're doing things for the wrong reason, or, you really don't know what somebody's doing. But I appreciate what Christopher's saying, because I had the same thought. There were so many things I didn't understand about town budget and how it all works, and you want to learn all of that to help be that change agent. So I highly recommend, excuse me, that we get something in writing. We shouldn't just wait and not do it, because it's not just the school committee. It could be somebody from another committee, another department, whatever it may be. And I think it should be clear before people want to make those choices, before people are appointed, or things, get further along and you're part of a board and then you find out you can't be part of that board. So I highly recommend that we get something in the bylaws.
Thank you, Michelle. And we appreciate you being here as part of a change agent too. So we appreciate, the more we all understand it. And again, as Cindy had said, that Christopher and I appreciate everything that you're doing, and that could be part of the liaison as well. So it doesn't need to necessarily be on both committees, but the emphasis should still be there, that we're talking with each other and working together as we are one town. So go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did want to go back and mention that it is my intention to recuse myself from votes that deal with the school budget. I could see the argument for a potential bylaw change, and if that were to come to town meeting, I may I may well even support that, because I do understand, again, the perception here, the potential for the perception. But ultimately, the only thing that I will push back on that I have heard is the idea of loyalty, because I will tell you that I take very seriously my charge as both a member of the Finance Committee and as a member of the Westport School Committee. The charge is to do things in the best interest of the taxpayers and voters of the town of Westport. Ultimately, that is my charge. And I say again, I do intend to fulfill that charge, and I again will certainly recuse myself from votes, but at the same time, I think that in terms of being able to help with the advising, or the, shall we say, providing information, providing an understanding between the entities, I intend to do that. So I appreciate everybody's thoughts on this.
Thanks, Christopher. So, the town moderator had, I believe he had some language that, I haven't seen it, so I can't share it, that had some language that other towns had used in their bylaws that he was going to share with us. And so there may be, I think we wanted to gather if it would move ahead to an article, which would be at next annual town meeting, because the town residents need to vote to change bylaws. That, if it would be an article that would be supported by the Finance Committee, or would it have to be, then of course supported by the Select Board to put it on the warrant, or if it needs to be done by petition or any of that nature. So I think that's where we were just trying to have a conversation on that. But I haven't seen the language, but I think it's simple language that says it precludes Finance Committee members from being any other elected official. I think it's something as simple as that. Go ahead, Hugh.
I just consider that makes perfect sense, but I suggest we defer the discussion until we have something to respond to.
Yes. That's why he was supposed to be here at 6:30, but we'll schedule it for the next meeting. We certainly have plenty of time before town meeting to get that going, but anything else for anybody? Cindy, go ahead.
I would like to make sure that this year we have the representative from Westport that serves on the Diamond School Board to make a present to come before the Finance Committee. They've got this construction project going on. I don't think we've had a good read on what that project is about, how big, over budget, under budget. The last I read, the city of Fall River has some issues about funding, that they may have violated their own laws regarding how they can pay for it, and they may in fact have to go before the voters to approve the long-term borrowing. But I'm not sure that that's still true. I've always had issues about their budget because they just set a budget and we have to pay for it. I mean, no matter, it could be up 5%, it could be up 15%, and it's no questions asked. The bill is just delivered to us. So we haven't had someone from Diamond since I've been on the committee, which is, I don't know what, 5 years now. We've never had actually someone that represents Diamond in front of the Finance Committee. So I would like to make sure we schedule that in our budget meetings this year.
Sure. We could,
I don't know who the liaison is.
I don't know that we have, it used to be Tracy,
Right.
and I'm not sure who, I don't know
Right.
that anybody ever.
There's some,
Gee.
who was it?
Is his name Paul? Why am I thinking Paul? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name.
We'll have to ask the select board or Jim,
Right.
the town administrator.
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, sure. We'll put that as a topic for,
It's a good one.
yeah,
Because it's almost like these timeshare condos, you know, there's no end game to how much we're gonna have to write out a check for until the end. And
Right. Right.
it's kind of crazy in a way.
And, and I guess to be fair, we should have Bristol Aggie come in as well. I mean, I don't mean to pick on Diamond. It's just, I know they have this, mammoth construction going on. I don't know how they are set financially with that. Bristol Aggie has already done their construction. They finished that. But it'd be good for someone to have to at least make an appearance and justify their budget.
mhm. Sure, absolutely. Anything else for future meetings? So we'll have to figure out when it might be good, Cindy, to see if that Diamond could come in the November timeframe before we really kick into budget season to really talk about the construction. That might be a nice time.
Would you like me to follow up with the town administrator and also get an appointment with whoever that
Yeah.
mystery person is? Okay.
That
I'll
would
follow
be
up on
terrific.
that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Much appreciated. So in terms of topics for next meeting, we talked about it a little bit that, I think it makes sense at some point to have another request to have a joint meeting between the finance committee, the select board and the school committee. Does anyone feel that would be something that of interest to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
You think
Yes.
maybe yes, okay. Maybe
Zach has his
Oh, go
hand
ahead,
up.
Zach.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. I think the more we can narrow in the purpose of it, the more direct we'll be during the meeting. So it's not so open-ended. So if we were going to meet as 3 committees, it would be nice as a finance committee to kind of understand the goal going into it.
Great. Perfect.
Good idea.
Perfect. Okay. Do you think the November timeframe is a good timeframe?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's good.
I'll try to I'll talk to the chair of the select board to see if she wants to chair the meeting or defer to me to chair, but or even or joint, we'll see. But and then we'll try to get some dates together. So I'll let them present it at their next, maybe their select board meeting to get some ideas.
I would just suggest that if it's a FinCom request of meeting that we host, you chair, and they come.
I know, I was trying to get off the hot seat, Al.
I know.
That sounds like a Thanksgiving dinner invite.
Right.
Yeah, but more importantly, we should set the agenda. It's
Right,
not
right,
about chairing
right.
the meeting, it's about the agenda.
Right, absolutely. Okay,
Right. So
All
the
right.
next meeting, we could talk about the agendas, as Zach indicated. I think it's a great idea that we make sure we have a clear idea as to what we're trying to accomplish in this meeting, and it's not, open-ended. So,
Right.
Objectively too,
right.
right. So maybe we can try to get a date on a calendar and then we'll follow up with some of the specifics of the agenda.
Okay.
Certainly the budget will be one of the topics clearly, so we know that. Okay. Anything else from anyone? I do not have any topics that came up within 48 hours. I do not have any correspondence. We talked about topics for next agenda, so that will definitely be talking about that meeting. So meeting schedule, we're still on the 1 a month timeframe, and then maybe at next month's meeting, we can put together a schedule for budget meetings and then shoot try to shoot those out early to the departments to get them scheduled. It's kind of nice to get it on the books and potentially do the similar what we did this past year, that we did a couple of meetings in December to get the easy ones out of the way. And then January, we kind of hit it hard weekly, and then we're almost done. And then the school is the last budget meeting in the early February timeframe, but we can put a schedule together, see if that works for everybody. I have nothing else. Anyone else?
Nope.
All right.
Good
I
meeting.
will, yeah, well, time to go.
Plenty of time to make popcorn for the debate.
I was thinking of popcorn.
That way you can throw it at the screen.
That's right. Cindy, a while ago got me for another reason, for Christmas, a Nerf football so that I could throw the damn thing at the screen every time I didn't like it.
All right. Well, I will entertain a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you so much. Christopher?
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
Thank you, Al.
Al Lee's aye.
Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Duncan?
Duncan Law, aye.
Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Michelle?
Michelle Orlando, I.
Zach?
Zach LeBrew, aye.
And Karen Earls, aye. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next month.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.